Greetings everybody, this is Serpentine451 and welcome back to a very late, very, very late episode of Weeb Warriors. And I will have to explain this really quickly here, folks. First things first, I didn't do the reviews for 2 weeks. The first week, I actually had a date, so I decided I wasn't going to be doing the reviews that week. And then the next week after that, my laptop had a few problems associated with it. So, make that what you will. And this week, I just slept in yesterday and decided to just take up too much time to actually do the reviews. So, now we're here. Now, let's actually get to the reviews themselves here. Alright, I will make this quick because the soapbox discussion for this week in particular will be partly just wash your damn hands, you filthy animals, because of the whole, coronavirus thing that's going on right now. And since I am not a YouTube channel that worries about monetization, I can say the fucking thing like I damn well please. You fucking humans. Alright. And on top of that, I will have a special segment because my good friend Jay will be coming in talking about not only the Babylonia anime of FGO, but his experiences with the game that I helped coerce him into playing. But let's actually get to the reviews here first and foremost. Let's start with Nekopara, since it's just a show that I personally review myself. Well, first things first, with Nekopara, these 3 episodes I can basically sum up as a pseudo adaptation of Volume 3's story with Meatballs singing and all that stuff. Then we have Chocolate and Vanilla renewing their bells. And the third one, we have Kakao spending time with her friends, spending that at her house, and Chocolate and Vanilla dealing with separation anxiety. And all those episodes were very wholesome, very sweet. The interactions with the other cat girls, Master Nut and Shigure, all great. And those moments were very wholesome and wonderful. Especially the kind of stuff I needed after a long work week that I've dealt with. Especially with this nonsense since I work in healthcare. Anyway, now let's get to our recurring shows, which is, I'll start with the show that just ended. And what I mean by just ended, it was like a couple of weeks ago or so, is Welcome to Demon School Iruma-kun. So basically, all you need to know, folks, is that Iruma just woke up one day, realizing that he's adapted quite well in the demon world, and decided, hey, I kind of like my life here, so I don't really mind that in the slightest. And anyhow, this also leads to Osmodeus and Clara just fighting in the kitchen to gain his affections because they wanted to see who can actually make him smile the most. And the series ends with this big old cliffhanger with a huge mood change from Iruma. I thought that was great and a very funny juxtaposition to the very nice Iruma to the very grumpy Iruma. I thought that was great. Overall, this show has been a wonderful show filled with nothing but great comedy. And I highly recommend it to those who decide to sleep on this show. I mean, the one thing I can say is that it's very funny, and it just will remind you of a lot of other shows out there. And I think that's the charm of it. It doesn't, like, aggressively smack you in the face with trying to change up the formula, so to speak. It just really plays on the idea that these characters can be enjoyable in their own way, and if you want to give the show a chance, I highly recommend that you do. Now on to My Hero Academia Season 4, where essentially I will break this down into the most simplified version possible, with Midoriya facing off against Gentle and Lil Brava in a 2-part brawl that I just loved seeing. In Class 1A's musical performance that went over the assholes that wanted to basically demean them in every way, shape, or form. Then we get to the fun part of the episode where Jiro just radiates top energy when it comes to her musical performance, making the very solemn and soft-spoken Eri this happy, energetic child that she's meant to be at her age. And it's just wonderful. This show can bring out so many emotions within a person, and the manga can just do the same thing as well. And that one chick from the support sector of the school, the third year, with the long-ass eyebrows, like eyelashes? Not eyebrows. Fuck. She freaks me out on no ends, but she has the typical Ojo-sama voice and it makes me laugh uncontrollably. Next up, let us get to the brass tacks of the shows that are in the review docket, that being Bufuri and Inspector. Now, let's talk about these shows in particular. Let's start with Inspector. These past 3 episodes is continuing on with this arc that they've had with the whole Steel Nanase thing. Oh, Steel Lady Nanase thing. Basically, these 3 episodes concludes the overall arc by essentially going onto the forum and Kokoto breaking down the idea of Steel Lady Nanase with a bunch of lies and presenting it in such a way into 3 separate parts that individuals can take individual pieces from, and her force solution pretty much causes a commotion that destroys Steel Lady Nanase, the monster, and Rika's whole idea of it, just tossing it out the window in a very clever way. I just loved this whole idea, this particular arc that's pretty much spanned the entire series. Most of the show's runtime, like its episode count, was dedicated to Steel Lady Nanase and the mystery behind it. And I found that very wonderful. I can't wait to see what they're going to do next, even if the show doesn't really continue on much further. Since most anime series have about 12 episodes dedicated to it. But that's just fine and dandy for me. Now, let's get to Bufuri, and these 3 episodes in particular focus on the 4th event, which is the guild competition. And we have Sally and the crew doing their best to gain orbs, which this whole event is centered around the gathering of said orbs. On top of that, Maple just destroys poor May and the Flame Emperors down to essentially their makeup. And we learn more about May, the guild leader of the Flame Emperors, and how she is very self-conscious about the fact that she's leading this guild, and she tries to come off as a cool, aloof character, to her guildmates, but they already know her to be just this weak-willed ninny, and I love it so much. And the big cliffhanger at the end of the penultimate episode, with episode 11, with the Order of the Holy Sword coming in to attack our belovable maple tree, and Pain decides to break out the sword art that destroys all defense. I think it was called Sword of Judgment. I'm thinking, holy shit, he took Maple down a peg. And that's how that particular episode ended. That was wonderful. I love this whole competition arc that they're going on about. And it really is keeping me on the edge of my seat. I cannot wait to see this next episode, and I want to know what is going on. It is going to be wonderful. Now, let's get to the soapbox discussion for this week. It's not really much of a soapbox discussion, but it's more like a new kind of segment. It's let's call this the Otaku in Summary, where myself or any of my wonderful co-hosts, that being my main co-host Jordan, or Jay, or maybe even Brian, a good friend of ours, can come in and talk about anime they've seen. Or maybe even myself when it comes to anime that I've seen, because I would love to talk about a certain anime that I watched pretty much this morning. Just finished it and told it, and it gripped me, even though I know Jordan wouldn't appreciate it because of some content matter. The fact that it's, from anthropomorphized animal people. But let's actually get to the main discussion. I will hop on now to my Discord, to the Discord group, to let Jay know that he can hop on to talk about the Babylonia anime that just wrapped up. So we can wait for my good friend here, and I know he's going to be popping on here anytime. Just hold on, folks. But until then, I will say this now. Well, all things considered, folks, with the whole coronavirus going around, all I can say is that make sure to wash your hands, you filthy animals. Because, let's just say this. Alright. But, we can hold on for Jay for a moment here. But I just want to plainly say, if you want to watch a good show, here's some things that I can suggest. Since everyone that is not working in healthcare or in essential works, much like police officers, firemen, post office, grocery stores, all those works, I want you guys to make sure that everyone's doing okay. Make sure you wash your hands, make sure everything is clean around you, but not to an excessive degree. Make sure you have everything that you need. And if you want to watch some anime, why don't you watch Cells at Work, which is on Netflix currently right now, and is also on Crunchyroll. So, for those of you who don't know, Cells at Work is just basically an anime where it talks about the inner workings of the human body. Another anime that would really catch your interest is even the shows that we're currently reviewing here, like Welcome to Demon School, Iruma-kun, My Hero Academia. Just a lot of great anime out there. Hell, even shows that we don't review anymore that might catch your interest, like Plunderer, Pet, and a few other shows that are out there. Even shows that we're not currently watching this season that are still pretty damn good. In the grand scheme of things, Hell, even Beastars, a show that popped in on Netflix recently. That's pretty damn solid. I can't wait to see what they're going to be doing. It really captivated me in that grand sense. But in the grand scheme of things, on top of that, with everyone holding up at home too, maybe more reviews can be a bit more frequent on my end. Uh, Sometimes I'm not quite sure, folks. Well, since I work the hours that I do, and in a form of healthcare, which all I can essentially say is I take care of old folks for a living, and since I do this job for the sake of taking care of people, all I plan on doing is just making sure people are safe and secure. Well, one thing I can easily say is that make sure you don't have people worrying about you. Alright? Make sure you stay healthy. And with that being said, hopefully Jay can come in soon so we can talk about the Babylonia anime, which I've played Babylonia in FGO before the anime adaptation, and I had a lot of fun gameplay-wise with Babylonia. And there are other FGO players that have watched the Babylonia anime, and I think K Collections, a channel that I recommend for FGO players and for other fake content too. I've watched a few of his videos on the adaptation changes of each and every episode of Babylonia, and it makes me wonder, like, yeah, I've seen those parts in the game. Those were very interesting moments, and they altered it for the anime. And I thought, okay, that I can understand. Well, if anything, folks, I'm sorry for the long pauses. Sometimes it's kind of difficult to find things to say when you end up trying to take care of things for yourself. And making things a little bit tight and snappy. And plus, waiting for some people is kind of a, well, its own little interesting problem, to say the least. Well, one thing I can easily say is that the Babylonia anime is definitely on my radar. I didn't choose to review it for Weeb Warriors simply because, well, I just didn't feel like it. It's probably a show that I would much rather watch on my own time and just really enjoy it for myself. And plus, there's a lot of things that we review here that will just take up a little bit of my time. Which I don't mind, anyway. And everything to me just comes to very simple. What's the word I'm looking for? Just a need and a want. I want to review more stuff that I enjoy, but I also have to take into consideration if my co-stars or my co-hosts would be more receptive at that. I review Nekopara because, well, it's something that I enjoy. It's something that brings forth a lot of joy to me. And from that sound there, we have Jay. How you doing tonight, Jay?
Greetings, mongrels. How you doing? Had this, I was actually recording another podcast while this was going on, so that's why I'm a bit late. But yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, I had to carry on for a good maybe 10 minutes or so, telling people to make sure that they wash their hands and practice a lot of safe washing what with this coronavirus thing going around.
No, that's definitely important. That's definitely important.
And plus, since I'm not a monetized channel, I'm not going to get demonetized for even speaking about that damn thing.
Yeah, but, videos in general get suppressed because of it, but, you're not worried about it. It's just not really, this is just what you do for fun, so no big deal.
I enjoy that part of my life, and if you have any words about it, Jay, go on ahead.
No, just, keep your distance, stay home if you can, if you are able to, obviously, those of you who work in the healthcare industry or work at grocery stores, thank you. We really appreciate you for what you're doing. Y'all are out there in the shit.
Yeah, that we are, Jay. That we are.
Much appreciated. Your jobs as they were, to begin with, were thankless, and so I definitely want to. My heart goes out to each and every one of you guys out there who is doing this. Again, we live in trying times, so thank you.
Yeah, it's just so you know, folks, it's not easy to helping and taking care of old people. It's a very taxing job.
I'm sure.
Let us actually get to some fun stuff here. So, Jay, you brought to my attention that you actually wanted to talk about the Babylonia anime because it just finished recently.
It just concluded this week. So, Fate Grand Order Absolute Demonic Front Babylonia. So this is the anime adaptation of the final singularity for Fate Grand Order. And actually, fun fact, this is what finally convinced me to bite the bullet and download Fate Grand Order, because Tony over here for the past 2 years is like, Jay, you love Fate. Do it. Download Fate Grand Order. You're gonna like it. Do it.
I honestly thought it was I that just nudged you a bit.
I mean, you were definitely there, but the anime is what convinced me, because I saw a Reshki Girl and I was like, must have.
Yeah, to be honest with you, the prospect of beautiful waifus will win over anybody, honestly.
Yep, and then I saw a Reshki Girl and I was like, alright, sold.
And plus, the art style for the Babylonia anime is not bad.
When November comes around, I may be extremely destitute. I'm just saying. Her recap. Whew.
Yep.
Man.
Yeah.
But this anime was really solid. It gave me a good idea of the type of story that Fate Grand Order had to offer, and that's really what drew me in. And because it was Babylonia, of course it centered around my boy Gil, and I'm a huge Gil fan, so I definitely was intrigued, and it introduced me to some very interesting servants as well, like Medusa Lily, Ketz, Ushi, Benkei, Leonidas, all of them, Enkidu / Kingu, pretty great. Gorgon.
Yep. And also,
really good.
Also Dick Wizard Merlin.
Oh yeah, Dick Wizard Merlin. Dick Wizard extraordinaire. Yeah, Merlin is also great. Everybody's favorite support.
Yeah, for Buster teams.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Merlin, just for caster teams in general, Merlin just makes sure you do not die.
Facts. These are the actual factuals. So.
But yeah, no, the anime is really solid. It was done by, I want to say it was Cloverworks, right?
Yes, it was Cloverworks.
Which is, they've done some great work in the past, so I had some faith, and then I saw the OVA right when it first dropped.
Oh, First Order.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, all right, this looks cool. I'll check it out. And so I've been watching the anime ever since, and it was really good, really, really good. Like I said, so much so that like halfway through the anime, I was like, fuck it, I'm downloading the game, played it. Obviously, some things were already spoiled for me because they, they talked about like the Fuyuki stuff in the beginning with, the singularity at Fuyuki and the stuff that happened with Olga and all the like the backstory stuff. So like the initial part of the game was spoiled for me, but like other than that, like I dove pretty deep into FGO, and several months later, I'm like still loving the game. I beat Agartha yesterday, and I'm training up to start Shimosa in a couple days.
Oh, believe me, this man has been updating me with his journey through FGO, and it's just been a delight. It's been an
Yeah,
honest
man,
delight.
it's been fun, and obviously, like any other FGO player, I've developed an unhealthy amount of salt because that gotcha is evil.
Believe me, I know that very well. But
But yeah, so yeah, the anime.
yes, how now? Here are a few of my questions, Jay. I've seen a
All right.
few videos, mostly from K Collections, who actually does episode reviews and how he compares them to certain scenes within the game itself. And
Mm-hmm.
since I've played through Babylonia before the anime aired, well, kind of an in between period where I beat Babylonia, and then I think around that time the anime was announced or so. I don't fully remember
Yeah, yeah,
when.
probably something like
So
that.
I knew of a lot of the story beats within Babylonia ahead of time because I've watched a few videos dedicated to guides about Babylonia itself when I was initially playing through it, and how there's a moment where you don't skip through anything because it will fuck you up seriously.
Yep.
And I'm not going to spoil for any of those who are first time players. Believe me, you're going to have to read through a lot of it. Just in the
I
off
mean, and
chance that your decisions will
like
fuck
a
you.
lot of people like they don't explain this to you in the first place if you aren't aware. But FGO isn't just a mobile game; it's essentially just a free to play visual novel. So it operates the same way as a visual novel. But granted, if you're a Fate fan, you should be no stranger to visual novels. So, like, definitely, it's important. Reading is definitely essential.
Mm-hmm. For those of you who just like to see the waifus and husbandos, you get a good story in it too. Well, with some singularities, it's a bit iffy in some people's honest opinions, but with
Yeah,
Babylonia in particular, it's actually one of the more intriguing stories, and
yeah.
it's the penultimate
It's
one before the actual final chapter.
It's probably the strongest story of the main singularities, and I mean Mashu puts it best. I think the reason why the story is so strong is unlike the other singularities where you're mostly traveling around, fight enemy, fight boss, traveling around, fight enemy, mob, fight boss. You actually got to stay in Uruk for a really long period of time, and you get really attached to the citizens and like just their day-to-day lives, and you get attached to people like Sitori and Gilgamesh, and the Uruk gate guard, the old lady that runs the flower shop. And the anime does a really good job at like also ingratiating you with the different citizens and like their lives as well too, like which is like a big part of the story. um, so I was very happy about that. They didn't like skip on the small stuff.
They may have changed a few things, like what K Collections did in his episode reviews, where he mentions the subtle differences and changes that they had to do for the sake of runtime in each individual episode.
Yeah. Hmm.
But you kind of have to
And
accept that with some adaptations.
And also because the Camelot movies are coming later, they couldn't do the proper conversation with Merlin where you could where like Merlin mentions, yeah, I was the one who sent Bedivere, with the whole Lion King incident. Yeah, that was me. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
But
but
because that would spoil the story. But We'll get that when we get the Camelot movies.
Mm-hmm. Which
I still have PTSD from Camelot. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
Oh man.
This man got wrecked by Gawain. I mean, all of us did at one point because we were not ready for him.
I was traumatized. I stopped playing the game for a couple days. I was like, oh my god, this fucking Sunny D ass bastard.
But okay. Back to the Babylonian anime, though. We can get over your trauma here in a bit. So,
Yep.
What would you say was the best moment within the entire Babylonia anime, Jay?
The best moment within the entire Babylonia anime, it would have to be the fight between Quetzalcoatl and Tiamat. Because, oh my god, that fight was absolutely beautiful. When she unleashed Piedra del Sol, god, oh man, that was just wonderful. And I do not have it. I do not have it pulled up right now, but I have to really say, I mean, as much as I enjoyed the sub, I absolutely love the dub actress who played Ketz, because she says all the Spanish, she has the right pronunciations, wonderful, just absolutely wonderful. She has the bubbly big sister energy that Ketz has, and it's just great. Ketz is probably my favorite servant from Babylonia, so I'm glad that her moment was pretty huge. I would also put the Anna or Medusa Lily's fight with Gorgon up there as well, because it was really, really well done. The choreography was super clean. I also I wish they had spent a little bit more time with Ushi and developing her, but you still really feel for the moment when Benkei takes the blackened Ushi clones down. But if they had spent a little bit more time developing her, I feel like that moment would have hit a lot harder. It definitely hits hard in the game, but I understand you needed to cut for time. But still, overall, Babylonia was really solid as an adaptation, especially because I really liked this arc. I enjoyed FGO for the most part, as I was playing. But this particular Singularity, and of course the following one, were the ones that really had me okay, they are being serious when it comes to the story, because damn, this was good. And I think probably the strongest point of FGO Babylonia, the anime, would have to be the care they put into Gil's backstory and the explanation of the Epic of Gilgamesh, and of course his journey to get the Potion of Eternal Youth and all that stuff. Because and it's a fun Easter egg for anyone who watched Zero, because if you remember in Zero, the catalyst that Rin's dad used to summon Gil was actually fossilized snake skin of that snake.
Yep, because that's also a part of the myth of Gilgamesh as well, where a snake decided to ingest that elixir of eternal youth.
Mm-hmm, which is why snakes can shed their skin. But yeah, it does a really good job at humanizing Gil, making him a much more likable character. Now, granted, I enjoyed him in his Archer form as this arrogant, tyrannical asshole, because he's just so much fun. But in this, you get to see his more human side, how much he cares about his people and people in general. I especially like his relationship with Citari. It's really fun. And then, of course, the heartbreaking moment when Citari becomes, turned into one of Tiamat's children, and she saves Kingu, and she, thanks him for, what he did for Gilgamesh. That was really sweet, and the anime handled it really well. I liked it a lot. Like I said, I think probably, if I had to pick one, though, the strongest point of the anime is definitely how well they handled Gil and his character. Okay. But if I'm being biased, Oreshigo. Duh.
But, okay, so that gives me ample time to actually ask you this, Jay. In your honest opinion, what was some of the more weaker aspects of the anime? Not to say that the anime was bad, but what did it do that seemed a bit whack?
Okay. So I feel like they didn't handle the but the Ishtar Ereshkigal situation as well as they could have, because they don't make it as clear. They make it a little too clear that Ereshkigal is, hijacking Ishtar's body when she's asleep. It makes it pretty obvious, and so there's not really that much mystery behind it. And you don't, at least in my opinion, you don't get as much characterization for Ishtar as you do in the game. They kind of just use her as like a joke, which, is okay because, she is, objectively worst goddess. I mean, as shown by the sign that they made her wear, because we all know who the best one is. But yeah, no, I feel like they underutilized Ishtar. Anyone who's a big Ishtar fan, I think might be disappointed by the anime a little bit. Not to say that she didn't have her awesome moments, because obviously she had some great moments against Tiamat's army, and some really good character moments, especially towards the end during the farewells. Was really solid, and the moment when she held Ereshkigal as she vanished, during the underworld was really beautiful. I think the resolution of their sibling arc was well done, but I feel like the middle part of it was they could have done more with it. I also feel like the comedy wasn't as strong. Like, there were definitely some really funny moments, but I remember, just playing the game all throughout, and there were just parts that made me laugh my ass off, but there weren't as many funny moments, especially, I feel like they could have used Merlin for more comedy than they initially did, because Merlin was a riot in the game, and especially with how Foe kept fucking with him, they could have used that a little bit more, because I understand they want to, they sell people on the action and stuff like that, but I also appreciate the smaller comedic moments. I definitely would have liked a little bit more comedy in it. Not to say that they didn't have any, but I would have liked a little bit more.
Who doesn't want to see a cute little dog thing beat the shit out of a mage?
Right? It was adorable and hilarious. And I love their bickering, and he's just like, I let you go, you little shit. What? You're gonna treat me like this? Really? Thought we were friends. And the Foe's just like, fuck you. They're my friends now. I don't need you.
I don't need you, fam. Get out of here.
Oh, man.
That's great.
Yeah,
but
overall, like I said, the anime is pretty strong. It does have its weaknesses, but honestly, this is great. If they continue this with the Temple of Time arc, oh man, it's gonna be pretty awesome.
Now, we don't know.
Anime onlys are going to be hella confused by this arc, because a lot of the Temple of Time, at least the attachment factor of it, has to do with, that they reference a lot of your past adventures. So, anime onlys are going to be hella confused. Wait, who are these people?
Yeah, because that's the one thing that is going to be very odd. Because especially of how they're going to adapt to that. So, you know what's something that's really funny? Within some circles, because I also try to keep up to date with what's going on in Japan with FGO. And Japan usually has live streams or what have you during certain events where they talk about the game. And they, during a whole chat discussion about the anime, before they actually went into some game stuff, the voice actor for one of the cryptors in Cosmos in the Cosmos of the Lost Belt arc, that we'll be getting here in NA relatively soon, he says that if Anastasia doesn't get an anime adaptation, he's going to be upset. Because...
Oh, man, I would... Because
Kadok is a character who barely speaks, which kind of hinders him and his characterization. Well, not in the sense that you don't know his character because you read it through the entire Lost Belt that he is essentially creating for the Cryptors. Well, for his part anyway. But the voice actor didn't get enough time to actually voice the character to do, like, more lines, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So he would be upset if, out of the choices to get anime adaptations, that the first Lost Belt doesn't get one.
I do still feel weird that like they chose Babylonia to be the first one to get an anime adaptation instead of like doing Orleans first.
Actually, I can understand the probable choice to choose Babylonia. Well, one, people like some people like Gilgamesh, so they wanted to bank on that.
Yeah. Gil is definitely a fan favorite. Like I said, he's one of my favorites, and I guess also, people love Rin, and we got 2 Rin faces here.
Yep. They want to sell us on that, and they also want to sell us on, like, the art style and how adorable the female characters look.
Mm-hmm. Best Hokai Mashu.
Yep. Because we can't have we cannot have a good Fate anime unless we have great looking waifus.
Solid, fair point.
And think of it like this: there are a lot of great waifus and husbandos in Babylonia. Hell, even the funny ones like Jaguar Man.
Which I love that Taiga is the body for Jaguar Man.
Yeah, we got a Taiga face, and it's hilarious.
Yep.
Jaguar Man's more of a joke character anyway, so.
Yep. That was great. I mean, yeah, that is pretty true. But like I said, like the fact, I mean, obviously it makes sense that they're going to be doing the Solomon arc next as the next adaptation. But again, it's going to be weird, and it's not going to have as much payoff for the anime onlys as it did for like the FGO players. Because I mean, like Tony got my messages when I was playing that arc, and I was like, "Holy shit! This is like Avengers Endgame level shit that's happening."
Oh yeah, definitely. And on top of that, so we're not 100% sure what the Temple of Time arc is going to be like. If it's going to be a full movie, a series of movies, or an actual anime adaptation, we do not know 100%. That's because they have yet to disclose that information. But what I can honestly say is that we as fans of not only the game, but of the entire franchise as a whole, can just speculate. And so, my question to you, Jay, and I can even mention this myself, what are your top 3 singularities, pseudo-singularities, or Lost Belts that you want to see adapted in anime form?
Okay, so I would have to say, I would like to see I mean, we're getting Camelot, but I would like to see the London singularity. If we're because that one was pretty solid. I really like the story there and the servants that were involved there. In terms of the pseudo singularities, I would probably say Shinjuku, because that is probably the most like the most interesting action oriented, and plus we get some. Obviously, you get an appearance from Artoria, who is the poster girl for Fate. So you'll get a lot of fans there too, and plus Apocrypha was a big hit. So seeing Jolter would be pretty cool. I feel like Shinjuku would be a solid choice, and just Agartha, because Scheherazade and titties. Yeah.
That's very solid. Very solid. Well, actually, my decisions aren't going to be... They're going to be a little bit more detailed, because I've actually had a lot of time thinking about this. And...
Alright, let's hear it.
So, out of the singularities, I would say Okeanos would be my choice.
Oh, okay.
Because the way I think about it is this. In terms of the stories, you would think, well, those who know me, because I know Jay, would assume that Rome would be the one that I would like an anime adaptation of, because it has my favorite saber in it. But that's not the case. One of my favorite stories within FGO itself is actually Okeanos. Because I like the dynamic. I just like the concept of going across islands and trying to take down Jason and the Argonauts. I like that idea for the.
And I also to add to it, I also did really like Mash's development in that arc as well. It was really good.
Yes, and I also love the characters that we had in that particular singularity. Francis Drake, one of my favorite writers. Not my favorite writer, but one of my favorites. She is such a fun character in that particular singularity because she's a living servant in that one. Then we have one of the servants I fucking hate, being Blackbeard, and his dumb fuckery. The Yuri Pirates are solid. And then one of my favorite characters to just hate, because he's such an incompetent moron, is Jason.
Oh, he's hilarious.
Yeah,
he's
such
hilarious.
A great comedic villain. And that's one of the things I want to see adapted, because I just feel the energy the voice actor gives to Jason when he actually becomes a servant in FGO.
Also, let's not forget one of my favorite archers at Singularity in Orion, Best Yandere.
Oh, yes. And
fantastic.
Yeah, and she gets a lot more development. Well, her and actual Orion, that being the little bear, because he actually gets his human form in Atlantis, which is the 5th Lost Belt.
Nice.
We actually get to see Super Orion, where he's a big, beefy man.
Sweet.
But that's not what I'm talking about here. And we got to see a great development from him and Artemis' relationship. A little bit of that within that particular Lost Belt. Well, half of the Lost Belt, because it's split into 2 parts. The fucking mad lads. But as of the pseudo-singularities, one that I would really love adapted, because I think the flow of it just makes it an easier adaptation, would be Shimosa.
Okay, I'm interested. You know, I'm only just getting to that.
The way I see it, Shimosa is essentially just Musashi fighting against 7 different swords people. Not necessarily the same thing, but they're not all swords. They're not all swordsmen, but they're essentially just 7 individual duels that Musashi has to fight. And the story itself is actually quite enjoyable, where we get to explore a Musashi that loses her eye at a certain point in the story, and she wears an eye patch, and she takes on a lot of different figures within Japanese history. We also got to see the introduction of an alter ego that actually holds special significance within the story later on in Cosmos and the Lost Belt. You'll be introduced to him much later in Shimosa J. You'll know it when you see him.
Interesting.
And we get to see characters that are introduced in the game like Yagyu, Danzo, and one of my favorite archers, that being Tomoe Gozen.
Gozen is pretty cool. I like Gozen's design.
Yeah, she's great, and her personality is that she's a gamer, and it's hilarious. And we also get to see returning servants in Minamoto no Raiko and Shuten Doji. On top of that, we get to see...
Is Gintoki there?
No.
I love Gintoki.
I think he is, but I don't fully remember. But I know Shuten is, and Mama Raiko is.
Yeah, Mama Raiko.
And the one thing that I really enjoy, that it's more of a character study and just an evolution of just Musashi, because the narrator of the story is essentially, from what I can understand, a much older, wiser Musashi who is a different version, who is what I can assume is a male Musashi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoy that aspect. And it's like
Okay,
an
cool.
announcer basically weaving a tale of a fighter. It's kind of like a Rocky story situation.
And I think that's kind of the reason why I also suggested like Agartha as mine, because I like the idea of Agartha being like formatted as like a story spun by Scheherazade, and plus like the whole antics with Fargus and like the different cities that you get to explore there. It could lead to some not only interesting comedy but good fights, good character development, and I like Fargus's character arc all throughout that as well. And I love how he ended it with him embracing his older self and obviously going out by sexually harassing Scheherazade, because that's how Fargus do.
Yep, Fargus be doing that. But as a close second to that, I would say Salem would be a perfect anime adaptation.
Salem, I've only like seen videos of and about, but it has probably like one of the most interesting stories I've heard.
Oh yeah, it definitely has the
In
most
terms of
potential to be a very interesting story to get an anime adaptation. But that's only my, well, let's just call it an honorable mention for the pseudo singularities.
mm-hmm.
But and you can make Rome my honorable mention for like the singularities to get adapted. But the one I'll save, I'll mention my honorable mention first. Out of all the lost spells that we have so far, the one
Okay.
that I want to see, the one that is my honorable mention is the Indian lost spell, because I find the ideas in that particular lost spell very captivating. Because it deals with the matter
Okay,
of
cool.
reincarnation and Pepperoncino. Yes, well, his name is Scandinavia Pepperoncino. Yes, that is his name. And he wants to find an archer class servant, which he does get. And he believes in reincarnation to the point where life cycles, he wants to basically restart things consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And I just find that idea so interesting. And at in a place like India, it works perfectly. And plus, we get to see a lot of Indian servants introduced there, and it's so much fun to see just a unique world explored within a Lost Spell. Hell, we get introduced to Indian Joan of Arc, and it's great.
Oh yeah, I've heard of her. Yeah.
But the one Lost Spell that I would love to see an anime adaptation of is Sin, which is the China Lost Spell.
Oh, that's the one that Genarabuchi did, right?
Yes, and that's part of the reason
Yeah.
why I want that adapted, because when Gen Urobuchi was writing the novels for Fate Zero, he wanted to use a Chinese servant for the caster instead of Gilles de Rais. But Nasu and Tai Moon basically said, well, we can't necessarily do that because they wouldn't allow an Asian servant being in close proximity to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to the Asian continent, that little designation. It would make them a little too powerful, and it just wouldn't really fit. So that's why he picked Shield of Ray. But when they asked him to write Sin, it was the perfect opportunity for him to actually play around with a lot of Chinese figures. And you get to see that in that particular Lost Spell. We have Old Li Shuwen, who is a security guard to the first emperor who had never died, that being Quan Shi Hung, where he becomes a ruler in the Lost Spell King. And it's a story where we get to see the Cryptor, Honoka, just try her damnedest to summon the servant that she was aiming for because of her true identity, which I will not spoil here, because I think that would just be a wonderful twist for those who actually want to experience it for themselves.
Nice.
And that's the one thing with Geno Urobuchi's writing. I really love his work, personally. And I would love to see
any of the anime he's written like have been fantastic. I mean, for just to look at an example from Fate, just look at Zero. That's usually the one that people go to as like the best one.
Well, a lot of Geno Urobuchi's work is great. He is the writer. Well, one of the writers of the Godzilla anime movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I've yet to see those, but I assume they would be great, because as a Godzilla fan and as a Geno Urobuchi fan, I would enjoy them, because the concepts in those are just so damn cool. And as a Kamen Rider fan, he was the head writer of a Kamen Rider series, that being Kamen Rider Gaim. One of the Kamen Rider shows that I actually watched to its completion, probably while it was still airing. Yeah, I watched it on a weekly basis. And I personally own 2 products from Kamen Rider Gaim, which they sold lock seeds. And the way that Geno Urobuchi implemented them was great, and his character writing in that show was amazing.
As it usually is.
And so, I think that Type Moon is sitting on a gold mine when it comes to adapting Sin. Because you have Geno Urobuchi.
Also, real quick, before we continue, we can't talk about Type Moon, sitting on a gold mine with anime adaptations, and me not yelling at Type Moon for not putting out a Tsukihime anime, because I want a Tsukihime anime. Give me a movie, give me an OVA, give me something, because Tsukihime is really fucking cool.
Yeah, we're just not going to talk about the first adaptation that they did.
Nope, let's ignore that one. It's not that good.
So, a good remake wouldn't be bad.
That's what I'm saying. Just give me a cleaner reboot that follows the story more, and yeah, I'll be happy. You gave me a really good one with Kara no Kyokai. I mean, it didn't need to be rebooted, but like the updated Kara no Kyokai, it's so cool. But where's Tsukihime's love at? Type Moon. Like, I know FGO is your cash cow, but like, come on, let's do it.
Yep. Well, with that being said, folks, I think we've rambled on a little too long, just about Type Moon things.
That's how it tends to get. So yeah, thanks for having me on, Tony. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. And if anything, Jay, hopefully I can actually welcome you in some reviews for Weeb Warriors.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. Whenever it's something that I've watched, I will definitely pop on. Also, you guys, if you are interested in more Fate content, I did a full review of Babylonia on my Vlare channel, as well as I plan on doing within the next couple days reviews of both Fate Stay Night Heaven's Feel Passage Flower and Fate Stay Night Heaven's Feel Lost Butterfly as well. I'm currently in the process of watching those. I've just finished the first one. I'm going to watch the second one tonight. So look forward to those. I have a lot to say about them, especially because Heaven's Field is probably my favorite route. Even though I'm more of a Rin fan, so you would think Unlimited Blades Works is, but I actually like the storyline of Heaven's Field better.
Yeah, and some degenerates like myself enjoy some of the scenes in some parts of the visual novel. The hilarious stuff. Because Nasu, when he was writing the visual novels, gets really damn funny.
Yes, he is. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, because people are defenseless, like Rin.
Yep, definitely.
And I've yet to see the Heaven's Feel movies for myself yet. but I can't wait to watch them because I'm sure they're
Oh,
grand.
oh yeah, I just finished the first one. The first one's really good, and obviously it's affordable, so it's fucking beautiful. So yeah, definitely. I can send you links if need be, and I would love to talk about these also. This would be a fun discussion.
Oh, and I will say this, Jay, that there is a show that I really want to talk to you about, but we can save it for like a later time or as soon as we finish recording here.
Okay, cool.
But with that being said, folks, catch you next time.